Check out shopscope.com today to take 50% off the entire store with the end of summer sale now in session. These packs are made for designers and creatives like you to enhance your workflow and creativity. You'll see in this video firsthand how I use our best-selling LUT pack to get quick looks on a graphic to add visual appeal. Now let's get into this tutorial.
This video is intended to elevate your craft as an artist. I'm going to be bringing you step by step to create this piece that you see right here on screen, a LeBron James legacy design. I'm going to show you a complete overview and tutorial on how to make a Photoshop poster design just like this. Always, all my project files and assets used will be available on Patreon so that you guys can get an in-depth look, and it's also a great way to support me so I can keep creating bangers like this. First thing that's really most important is masking. And of course, if we don't have a good mask, then we're not going to be able to, have a great design. So I like to use the object selection tool to get my mask. And to see that pink line, that's when you know you're good to go. Always have combined shapes on when you're going to be making a mask. And right there, so you have it. Pretty good outline shape, nothing too crazy. And the good thing about LeBron James is he doesn't also have any insane hair, so hair masking won't be too big of a deal. Clean up the edges, and I hit Q to see a preview. So I'm just going to make a mask of that first and see how it looks. And then I'll hit Command or Control, and then I'll add a layer below so that I can add a white solid color or just a off color so I can see how good the mask actually is. And then I can detail and fine tune the mask. And I'm just using the brush on my layer mask. Black is going to hide, white is going to reveal, and I'm just making sure that my mask looks good all around. So that's the pattern that I follow for how I get a mask. Before I do any of the retouching or anything like that, I'm just gonna get the rest of these masks and then I'll show you guys what I do in Camera Raw. But a masking tip is always make sure that you have combined shapes on in the top left, because if you want to keep adding to a selection and you don't have combined shapes on, you'll start making new selections and not knowing why. So always have combined shapes on when you're masking out any subject using any of the tools, the polygonal lasso tool, your pen tool, the quick selection. You gotta have combined shapes on when masked, because I can switch to the path tool and I'll use the pen. For more cylindrical objects, I like to use the pen tool. So with the pen tool, I just click and then it's gonna go to the next point. And these guidelines are showing you where that line is actually curving to. So it's a really good indicator for where your next point is going to land when you're masking out a subject. So then I right click, make a selection, add to selection, boom. I'm holding down Alt or Option, and that lets you do the inverse of the mask. So see, now I'm deleting. See how it's red? Because that's not selected anymore. It's because I'm deleting the mask that I had already made, the selection that I had already made. Polygonal lasso tool, adding more shape on, and I'm going to clean up these edges here. That should be a pretty good mask when I hit the layer mask button. And then once again, I'm going to add a layer below, holding Command or Control in that layer, and then we're going to add a solid fill color so I can see how the mask is really looking. Edges right here, they're a little bit rough, so I'm going to make sure I smooth those out before we continue. Painting black on the layer mask to hide some of that layer mask. When I'm looking at a mask preview, I like to use that bright color just so I can see more of a contrast between the mask and the background. If I have a white or black background, that can work. But when I have a very vibrant color on a darker subject, it helps me to see the true masking quality and any fringes that might need to get rid of or taken care of. So to get rid of just a little bit of this on the beard, a lot of times I just go ahead and use the concept art brush. And the concept art brush pack, I renamed the pelt brush. You guys will see it in there. I renamed it the hair brush just so I know every time I use it. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing. Painting black on the mask, and that's going to take away, and see how it gives that actual nice effect that looks like hair because it's pelt. When you compare nature to man is nature, but you know what I mean. A pelt brush that is like a tree brush that helps get a realistic beard look. So you guys can download that down below. I'm making this a smart object, and then I'm going to start a actual canvas for where the design is going to be. We're going to make it in RGB color, and we're going to do it on 16-bit channel. And I already know that this mask is going to be our main image. but let's add this other mask in just for now, and then we'll get the remaining 2 masks that will be used for this piece. So now we have all the masks that I'm going to be using for this piece. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure I have the composition set up. So I'm going to be moving this LeBron here, and I want to make sure that this is in chronological order as well. And I'm just trying to make it sure that it staggers and it's interesting. When you're making a composition, you don't want to just make a boring composition. Stagger it so that it's interesting, and your picture choice is also really important. So I took a lot of time to make sure my pictures were the ones that I really think was going to give this piece its best chance to be great. Now, moving into the next step is going to be all of our camera raw details and really just our player retouching. So we're going to go off of this LeBron James photo first. Control Shift A to go into camera raw. And let's take this image into camera raw. Now, I chose pretty good pictures. Besides the Lakers photo, all of these are really high quality. I couldn't find the best Lakers championship photos, but it doesn't really matter. We'll still deal with it. I'm going to bring my texture and my clarity up a tad bit, staying around 20 because this is already pretty. This had a good amount of clarity already on it from the original image. And I'm going to bring my contrast. Then I'll also just use my curves adjustment slider, bring the shadows down a little bit and the highlights up, make a little bit more of a effect here. And that's looking pretty clean to start off the bat with LeBron James on that first photo. I'm going to just copy my camera raw settings and hopefully they work out pretty well for the others. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'll just hit OK. Last one, I know we're going to need a little bit more work on it because you see it's not as sharp as the other ones. And that's just something you will pick up just with your eye. So I'm going to add sharpening to this image, make my saturation boosted somewhat, and then play around with the hue. And that's already starting to look better. This LeBron James here is kind of where I want everything else to stem from. So I want all of their tones to be around the same as his. So what I'm going to do is go on each LeBron, and for the Cavs LeBron, I'm going to add selected color onto him, and I'm going to adjust his skin tone to match more of the Cleveland Cavalier or the Miami Heat LeBron. So what I'm going to have to do is just take notice of how the skin tone is changing, and already you see a difference there. So let's do that for the next ones. When I have changed the skin tone, it changes the jersey because I'm on reds. So what I'm going to do is just paint black on the layer mask to just take a little bit off of the actual jersey and just leave the skin as the selection. And what I'm seeing as well is he's just a bit brighter. So I'm going to use a curves adjustment layer. Always make a clipping mask, so right click and make your clipping mask. So I'm bringing my shadows up. So curves work with shadows are here, midtones are here, highlights are here. These is your white points, this is your black point. So I'm going to bring my shadows up on him as we're getting this skin tone closer to where it needs to be. I do think his reds on the jersey are too saturated. That's just from the original picture, honestly. So I'm just going to lift those a little bit. And then I invert that mask so that I can just paint in the adjustment I just made. Like so. So I'm going to create this into another smart object. So I'm merging that into a new smart object. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade these out. So I added another layer mask and I'm going to paint black to fade out the bottom of these masks. On the bottom of this LeBron mask, I'm going to add a solid fill color to begin with. In terms of what color at the bottom, I'm not completely sure, but I think I'm going to go with something like the Cleveland Cavaliers, just because that's LeBron's most prominent team. Yeah, I think I like red. I'm going to try and blend this red in the best way. Let's resize some of these photos like this. And then I also downloaded all of his logos. So I'm going to put some type of script up on the top left just to signify the legacy that we are making a graphic of. I have some type of title, maybe like LeBron Legacy. Let's see what I type out, if it looks cool or not. Maybe some detail like this. Just a shape detail. Usually can't go wrong with it. Try to write out his name. And a different font at the top. So let's change the font up a little bit. Change the kerning. So I go on the text tool, double click the text tool, hit Command or Control T to bring up this little pathway. And I'm going to change the kerning maybe to something around 2000. We're going to see how it looks though. Like that. That's pretty dope. I can get the logos from his teams. Putting these in the right spots and the way that I want them. If you ever want to get everything equidistant, select all your layers, so holding down shift, and then go up to the top right here, and this is like a equal divider type of tool. So that's going to divide all your shapes evenly. I'm going to put an X between these logos, so just to distinguish the space and difference. I think I'm going to split it down right where the hat is and put something cool up there. So I'm going to change my legacy text to being white. I can put one of these cool early on images in. I had a close-up of him, so I want to see if this image will fit. I'm going to clip it to the rectangle for now, add a layer mask, and then I'm going to blend out a little bit of it. Let's go in Camera Raw. Add even more clarity to this than there already is, just because this is a background image, so I don't mind having it look really detailed and edited for the background. It just gives it a nice vibe. I like the way that that looks in the background, and this is starting to look more like a real, movie poster or anything that you would kind of see on Netflix for a series, something like that. So I'm gonna click on this rectangle here, and then I'm going to actually unclip this mask. And I want this mask to be contained in the rectangle, but I don't want it to be clipped to it because we're going to be adding effects to this actual image. So make a folder and use the layer mask from the selection of the rectangle to put this image into that space. So I'll show it one more time. You clicked on the rectangle because that's already created. Control click or command click to highlight the selection. Then I made a group, and then I made a layer mask of that group, and I'm going to place this image in the group. So now I can just hide this rectangle theoretically, and it doesn't need to be there. But what I did that for is because I want to add a gradient map onto this image of LeBron. So I'm adding a gradient map, and then I'm clipping it, and then I'm going to go from black to white. But I'm going to make this a really transitory gradient map, so it's going to go from black and then it's going to transition slowly to white, so that it looks really professional and detailed in terms of the photo and gradient. So see this transition that I have to white, it's not super abrupt or sudden, it's more of a smooth transition. Also with this gradient map, let's not have it be complete black, let's have it a little bit lifted from black. I always like that slightly lifted black look. It just gives it a little bit more of a look and appeal. So now that I have these masks, I'm going to do player retouching, and what I'm going to do is make these into their own groups, and then I'm going to show you guys how I do more in-depth player retouching than just camera raw. When I have this image, the first thing that I like to do when doing player retouching is going to select color range, and then I like to select the shadows from the image. Whatever you're going to see that's white in this box is what's selected. So see all those white spots, that's where a shadow is selected. And let's turn our fuzziness back up to like 11 or 12. So see all this white space is what's selected as a shadow. So then when I add an exposure layer onto this image from that selection, this is where we start getting shadow. See that? Because it's working right off of that layer and that selection that we just made. And then once I have a exposure and I like the selection, I use my feather to just give more of a flush look to the image. And if you ever don't like your selection, you can deselect it and go back to select color range and then re-choose a selection. If you want more, slide your slider to the right to get more white. If you want less, slide it to the left and you will get less of a selection. So don't be afraid to play around with that. I like the selection that I did have, so we're just gonna go with that one. And then once again, I'm gonna add my feather so that I can get more flush look to the shadows. Shadows don't have to be set in and you can't change them at all. You can always change them around. I'll go in and take out a little parts here and there that I don't think need to be there, and then I'll paint white on the layer mask to add parts in that maybe I missed. And that's initially how I start my player retouching. And then the second step is the highlights. So I do the same step, select color range. This time I'm just going to choose the highlights and it follows suit. So you see these white selections, that's what's going to be selected on the highlights. And then I use exposure once again and I raise them this time. And that is a really quick way to get into player retouching, especially if you have limited time on your project and you don't have time to do the full dodge and burn. But I do dodge and burn as well after the fact. So what I do for dodge and burn is I add a layer and then I hit shift backspace, and then you're going to add a 50% gray layer, clip it to your subject, put it on overlay, and then you're going to use the dodge and burn. If you ever want to do the opposite when you have the, so see right now I have burnout, right? So, and I have it on shadows, so it's gonna be making shadows darker. If you ever don't want to keep clicking back and forth between these two and wasting time, just hold down Option or Alt and it'll do the opposite. So once I hold down Option or Alt, now it's going to dodge, and see how areas are getting brighter. That's because I'm holding down the opposite. So keep that in mind when doing dodge and burn and you're not doing too much. So see how right there, like that would be too much. And that's sometimes what I see in a lot of beginner designs, is going too overboard with the dodge and burn. Never do too much in to where it's actually destroying the image. You don't want that look. And the other thing that I like to do when I have a black shirt is I add a hue and saturation layer. So go to this, add a hue and saturation, go to blue, and then take your blues down, because there's just a little bit of blue in his shirt. See if I saturate it all the way up. So bring your blues down and that'll help. And then one other thing you can do is also brighten the eyes and it'll give it a better look. So I added the exposure layer. I'm going to Control or Command I to invert that exposure layer, and then I'm going to paint white on the layer mask in order to brighten the eyes up. And don't brighten them up too much, brighten them up enough to where it gives the piece a good look. And then by default, I'm going to make the left side a little bit darker than the right, just because I have that light source kind of hitting him on the right side, just because this is a white canvas. And from there, just experiment with your lighting and everything that you see, and you're going to pick up your own little habits along the way that are going to help you make really cool designs. I think I'm going to add a solid fill color over some of them. So I'm going to add a solid color, or actually I'm just going to take this solid color that I had before. So copy the red so that I have the same exact color and paste it on top of LeBron. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more red to him on the outside, just simply like that, to start integrating him with what's going on in the piece. The main thing you want to do when you're making a composition is you want everything to feel unison. So doing these little things like just putting a little bit of red here and there on people, or making people darker just in terms of the background, it goes a long way when creating a full piece. What I need to add for this LeBron James mask is I need to add a black shade underneath him. So I'm going to add a solid color just for his feet shadows. Just gonna put it on all the way dark. Invert this mask and then go to your brush. So use B to go get to your brush tool. But then once you're on your brush tool, you're gonna see this wheel on the brush settings, and then you're gonna bring the wheel down. If you don't see your brush settings, go to window and then you can just go to brush settings. But yeah, you're gonna bring this all the way down on the wheel. So see the wheel, bring the wheel down, and then make sure that your hardness is low when you're painting in the foot shadow. And I'm looking at this LeBron James. Let's add a little square. So go to the rectangle tool. Let's add a little divider here because I can't really see the legacy part. And then I'm feeling like I'm gonna have to move these logos. At this point, I'm gonna try and add a little color lookup. So I'm going to the top, add a color lookup. If you don't have these color lookups yet, check out shopscoped.com. Use my discount code SHOPSCOPED to take 15% off your order. I have more packs than just this color lookup pack. I have a trading card pack, this LUT pack, we have a fire pack. You know, there's just a lot of packs on there that are going to help you upgrade as an artist. So check that out today. But let's see what is going to work best. Enter vibes. Well, I think Super Pop is the one that I probably will go with. As of right now. I'm gonna add an inner shadow, but it's really gonna be a highlight to this LeBron Lakers mask. So how I do that is I just click on his layer and then go to inner shadow. You just gotta make sure the blending mode is on linear dodge, and then see how it's making like a white outline. I'm gonna put it on the other side. Put it on the other side. Then if you want to make inner shadow its own layer, right click it and then create a layer from it, and then you're gonna drag it up, and then I can delete out that part. Just adding a little bit more red pop. So if we want to add a little bit more of that, go to this red slider on the solid fill color. We're gonna change this to linear dodge, invert that layer, and then I'm gonna actually put this underneath the color lookup and just paint a little bit over the top of these glows just to enhance that red feeling just a little bit more. So I'm trying to just come up with a cool like mashup of stats. Alexa, how many times has LeBron won MVP?
LeBron James has won 4 MVPs in 2009, 2010, 2012, and 2013.
Now once we have this completed, now I'm gonna hit Command Option Shift E, or if you're on Windows, Control Alt Shift E, and then that merges the layer as one. So now it's its own layer. And then from there, you're gonna make it a smart object, right click, convert to smart object, filter, camera raw. And now let's just see what cool filter we can use. Usually I go right to cinematic 2 because they usually just have insane color looks for the colors that are on your canvas. My Photoshop crashed. Hold on, y'all. Alright, I'm basically back to where I was. I know I dropped back some of my oranges, add a little bit of grain. And then from there, I would usually just add my logo. But, you know, this is more of a tutorial, and I'm showing you guys how to get it done. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, I think we came out with a pretty cool concept by the end of it. Nothing too crazy, nothing too easy either. Always want to challenge you guys and make sure you're getting something out of the video. So if you did, make sure to drop a like down below. You guys can get access to this file on Patreon as well as many other packs, and it's a great way to help support me as a digital creator, and it helps me to be able to make more videos more often and share a lot of my knowledge with you guys. So like I said, like the video, subscribe. It's been CALSOSCOPED. Let me know what video you guys want to see next time, and peace.